Hey, this is Leo for Actualized.org, and I have a question for you. Have you ever doubted yourself? Doubted whether you could handle the kind of tough situation that came up for you in life? So maybe life threw you a curveball. Maybe you're in this position right now where you're just dealing with something, whether it's a relationship or some trouble at work, just something that is exceptionally hard, and you feel like you don't know if you can do it. You don't know if you can handle it. Why is it so hard? Why is life unfair? What's going to happen if you fail? How are you going to get through this? Maybe there's a money problem. You don't know how you're going to get those bills paid, and you don't know what kind of catastrophe will happen if you don't. Or maybe there's a relationship and it's going to break up and you don't know how to salvage it or what you can do, and it seems like it's a lost cause. Well, I think we've all been there. I've certainly had many moments like that in my life. And one of the things that I've been doing lately as a practice to build myself up against these kinds of situations, I've been doing affirmations. And specifically the affirmation that I've been doing is one that goes like this: try it on for size and see how you like it. And the affirmation is, I can handle any challenge, any situation that life throws at me. So that's my affirmation. I can handle any challenge, any situation that life throws at me. Now, why did I pick this affirmation, and what's the importance of it? So the reason I brought this up is because I've been doing also not just affirmations, but I've also been doing a contemplation exercise where I've been thinking about this. So by affirmation, I mean that this is something that I say to myself for at least 5 minutes every day. So I'll find 5 minutes in the day, either in the morning or in the evening, to just sit down and affirm to myself consistently this one message, just repeat it like a mantra. So it'll just go like this: I can handle any situation, any challenge that life throws at me. I can handle any situation, any challenge that life throws at me. I can handle any situation, any challenge that life throws at me. And I'll just do that for 5 minutes straight. If you do it for 5 minutes, your mind eventually really buys in and gets on board with this, and especially if you do it consistently every single day. And if you do this and you actually start thinking about what this affirmation really means, you'll get this kind of insight that I got. And to me, what's amazing when you drill your mind like this using these kind of exercises is some of the profound insights that you get. And I was doing it just tonight, and I was thinking about what this really means and how powerful and amazing this is. That no matter what challenge I'm faced with, it really is true that I can handle it. I can handle it. And why is this true? Well, there's a couple of angles that we can go at this from, which I'm going to cover. So firstly, if you just look at your own life and you look at your own history up from birth until today, and you take a look at all the tough times you've had, all the really big struggles, all those moments where you felt like it was a life or death situation, where it was do or die. And maybe it literally was that dramatic for you. Maybe it literally was a life and death situation. Or maybe it was just something that you felt was a life and death situation at the time, but then you realized that it wasn't that important after all. But just think about all those moments. Maybe pick one or two that were like your most difficult moments in life. And if you think about that, and you think about where you are today, and where those moments were, and how they shaped you, what you eventually realize, if you're honest with yourself, is that those moments, first of all, they got you a lot of emotional growth. They got you a lot of maybe even success as a result of that growth. That's the success you have right now. But also, you just see that you were able to handle it. Sure, it might have been tough. It might have been very emotionally trying and taxing. But in the end, that statement that whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger, there's a lot of truth in that. And that's what tends to happen, is that you experience these traumatic events, but in the end, you're able to handle them. And it's not even because you are so great. It's just because you are a living organism, and it's in your genes to be a survivor. So you're a survivor no matter what situation you're faced. The most drastic, dramatic, horrible situation that you can put yourself in, you can handle that. Your body and your psychology is designed to cope with it. And that's actually a thought that we don't usually have. And when I think about that and I really meditate on it and I do this affirmation, then it really grounds me, makes me very confident in my ability to go forward. And I suddenly see that those challenges that I have before me are not really as big as I thought they were. They aren't as important as I thought they were. They aren't as catastrophic. Even very serious challenges. I'm talking about the death of people you like. I'm talking about even your own death. You're able to deal with that. You're biologically just wired to deal with it. You can deal with it. You can deal with anything. You don't even really have a choice in the matter. You're just going to survive through it. You're going to survive through it. You're going to come out the other end. Or maybe you even don't come out the other end. But you still handle it. What I mean by handle is not that you're going to go through and never give up. It's not that you're not going to have any emotional labor or pain to the situation. It doesn't mean you're always going to succeed. Definitely not the case. There have been many times in my life where I've tried things and worked really hard towards them, but then still quote unquote failed because I didn't get the result, that the external result that I was ultimately after, right? And in that situation, you could say that I failed, and in some sense, I didn't rise to the challenge. Or maybe there have been times in your life when you haven't risen to the challenge. Maybe it was in college, maybe it was at your job, maybe it was a presentation you're supposed to give, maybe in a relationship, and you really bungled it. You really screwed it up. And I'm not saying that you won't have those kinds of moments. You will. But notice that even in those cases, first of all, a lot of those situations, even though you totally screwed it up, does it really matter now, where you are right now? Did it really make that big of a difference? I think in 95% of cases, it really has no long-term effect. No long-term effect. Of course, there are those cases that are extremely traumatic, like extremely vivid events, traumatic experience in your life that could have a very lasting repercussion on your psychology, on your psyche, and on your reality, and on your model of how the world works. So there's certainly those as well, and we've all got a couple of those in our closets. But even with those, think about it, you survived through that, you made it through. And right now, in the moment that you're sitting in here, things aren't so bad. You're pretty comfortable. The present moment is all right. Nothing too terrible is going on right now, right? And that's kind of how it is that you are a survivor, and that even the worst times, even those things that you think are just going to be horrible, you can still survive. There's a deeper perspective on this, which I was just contemplating this evening, and that is that if you really think about human history, and you think about where we came from, where we evolved from, then you get a deeper appreciation of our natural ability to survive. And what I mean by that is, think about where human society was, where humanity was 100,000 years ago. So 100,000 years ago, as far as we can tell, we were living in hunter-gatherer tribes. And in those societies, these were small little cliques of humans, maybe 50 to a tribe, 100 to a tribe, 150 to a tribe. And they lived together, and they fought with each other, and they had no permanent shelter. They had no heating or electricity. They had no internet or computers or cell phones. They had no access to supermarkets that would provide them with reliable sources of food. They had no income. There was no money. Transactions had to be based on a bartering system. And think about the dangers involved with bartering with someone from a neighboring tribe that you might not really know. Think about the rape and pillage that went on in that kind of environment when you had two tribes that clashed with each other. Think about the social hierarchies and people vying for power and dominating each other. Think about the struggle for food when you couldn't find a herd of deer to hunt, or when there was a drought and you couldn't plant anything. Think about how challenging that was. Think about not having clothing. Think about running around naked in the cold and in the heat. Think about not even knowing which pool of water you can drink from because some of the water could be contaminated. Think about all the diseases you could get that there were no cures for. Think about not even understanding what the hell is going on in life. Think about not even understanding how long you're going to live, not understanding basic medicine, not understanding biology, not understanding any kind of philosophical concepts that we have now about human development, not understanding anything about psychology, being totally immersed in mythology and superstition. Just think about that. Think about if you were living in that kind of environment. Well, that's what your biology and your psychology is actually designed to handle, because we haven't evolved too much genetically from that phase that we were at about 100,000 years ago. And so when you think about that, it's kind of sobering, because it's like, damn, those people could really survive. They could really tough it out. And in some sense, that really puts our problems into perspective. I think it's really important to put your problems into perspective once in a while, because sometimes you might be so immersed in getting your business up and running, or you might be so immersed in a relationship problem that you have, or you might be so immersed because your children aren't behaving the way you want them to, or because some piece of technology is not doing what you want it to, or maybe you get held up at the airport on a layover and the weather is bad, or maybe you're having car trouble and you make it to work an hour late, and you get so caught up in those problems. But think about it. Think about the real problems. Those aren't real problems. Think about the real problems that people face, the life and death problems that people faced 100,000 years ago, every single day, and how challenging that must have been. So the point here is that you are actually much more resilient than you give yourself credit for. And I think that this is a concept that I'm borrowing for Don Miguel Ruiz from his nice little book, The Four Agreements, is that he really makes the case at the beginning of the book that man is a domesticated animal, and that we have domesticated ourselves. And that's exactly what has happened, is not only did we domesticate the dog, the wolf turned it into a dog, and we domesticated feral cats and turned them into little kitty cats, and we domesticated bison and turned them into cattle, basically, and we domesticated all these animals. But the greatest thing we did is we domesticated ourselves. The fact is, now we live in cages. These are our homes. We're very immersed in all the technology we've got around us. We're very reliant on it. It's making our lives very nice and comfortable and easy. But it's also kind of making us lose touch with that resilience that we had, that natural resilience. And the fact is that you have that resilience right now. So even though you are domesticated and I am domesticated, we can't really help being domesticated in this society that we grow up in. But just realize that you've got a lot of resilience, which means that you can handle any challenge and any situation that's thrown at you. This is not just some wishful thinking. This is actually a matter of fact. This is a matter of your psychology. This is a matter of your biology. There's no situation that you can't handle. You might have an emotional breakdown, but you're still going to go through. Nothing really that bad is going to happen. And I'm talking about real horrible situations. I'm talking about like someone goes and kidnaps you and tortures you for a month. Like, you'll be able to survive that. It's kind of a sobering thought. Or if you get drafted into the military and you have to go and you have to fight, you have to kill other people, you'll survive that. You get wounded, you might get a leg amputated, you might get paralyzed, you might get diagnosed with cancer, you might lose your life savings in the stock market or in a Ponzi scheme. Someone might scam you and rip you off. Your spouse might totally desert you, might cheat on you. You can survive all that. You're designed to survive all that. In fact, you have no other option, really. You have no other option. It's either you're going to die or you're going to survive. And that's really the only choice. That's it. You're designed to handle any situation, any challenge that comes up in life. And these, I'm talking about like grave challenges. Most of us are not facing these kind of challenges in our lives. Most of us behave as though we are. Oh, sure, our mind likes to catastrophize that meeting at work, that presentation that we've got, or some little fit that we have with our girlfriend or boyfriend. We tend to say that, oh, this is the end of the world, we're going to break up, or they're going to fire me, I'm going to lose my money, something's going to go wrong, and we're catastrophizing, but this is our mind really playing tricks on us. Because it did evolve, our mind. Our mind did evolve to handle serious survival challenges, which we really rarely face nowadays. It's rare that you're facing a life or death challenge for real. In most cases, it's your mind playing tricks on you and projecting and catastrophizing everything into a life and death situation. And we got to get a lot better with ourselves at telling ourselves when a life and death situation is really a life and death situation and when it's not. And so I really want to get you a little bit more aware about the fact that you can handle any challenge, because sometimes it does feel like you can't. So I'm not saying that it doesn't feel that way at times. And I've had this just recently. I've had real challenges where I feel like this is not something I can do. This business is not something I can lift off the ground. I can't really handle if I lose my savings. I can't really handle this. I can't handle that. What if this happens? Just like catastrophes. And it feels sometimes when you're in that pit of despair and you're really at the bottom, you really feel like you're at the bottom and you feel like you're so down that you can't make it through. And that's exactly why I had this affirmation for myself, and I'm drilling it into my mind, and I've committed to drilling it into my mind for the next 60 days because I literally want to reprogram my subconscious so that I totally believe, with every fiber of my being, I believe that I can handle any situation that comes to me in the future. Because I've gone through those downs, and I don't really want to go through those downs anymore. And I felt like creating this affirmation was a good way to stem that off in the future, because I know I'm going to have those challenging moments. But I want to also be able to get back in touch with myself when I'm starting to go into that dip. I want to be able to tell myself, and I want to have my subconscious mind be imprinted with the belief that I can handle any challenge, I can handle any situation, and that it's never as bad as it seems. Even the worst things are never as bad as they seem. And I want you to take that to heart. So if you're going through a really tough time right now, that's just a fact. You're going through it. But number one, you're going to learn some good lessons from that. And you're going to actually get a lot of success in your life from those situations. So that is the silver lining. And it's not a wishy-washy New Age thinking type of silver lining. It's a real silver lining. That's a fact, is that you grow with those experiences. But then just realize that you are designed to survive and that your ancestors have survived through situations that were much, much worse. In fact, you yourself have survived through situations that were probably much, much worse than the one that you're worrying about right now. And you do not want to sell yourself short. Realize that your resiliency is nearly infinite. No matter how much pain you experience, your resiliency is nearly infinite, and it's amazing. And one book that I recommend reading on this to get your mind around this idea and to really buy into it is read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl was a Holocaust survivor, and he talks about, in very vivid detail, about his experiences in concentration camps in Germany through the middle and the end of World War II. And he really talks about in graphic detail about the horrors of the concentration camp. And the stuff that was going on there was so horrific. And yet, the people that were there, they were able to deal with it. They were able to cope with it somehow. And he talks about how he was able to cope with it. And he was actually a psychologist, and he created a whole philosophy and a whole model based on his experiences there in these concentration camps. And so read that book and just take a look, because what it'll do when you're reading some of those incidents, it's like you said, damn, like how can that possibly be? How could you possibly survive that? I couldn't survive that. That's what you start to think. But then you realize, you know what? It's not that Viktor Frankl was really special, and it's not like any of his friends or any of his cellmates in the concentration camp, like they were any different. They were all basically human beings. And the fact is that even though we can experience a lot of pain, and sometimes you can't avoid that pain, we can all survive it. We can all live through it and come out better on the other end. And you can even survive very horrific things like torture and starvation and humiliation and rape and death. All of these things are not nearly as bad as we make them out to be. And our ability to live through them and to survive them is there in everyone. And it doesn't take a special character. It's there whether you want it or not, because you are a survival machine. You have gone through millennia and hundreds of generations of survival of the fittest. And you are the fittest of the current generation. You are the fittest of all our ancestors. And so you couldn't get here, you couldn't be here if you couldn't survive that challenge that you're facing in your life right now. All right, this is Leo signing off. I hope you got a little bit of encouragement from this if you're going through a tough time. Go ahead, and I encourage you to actually practice this affirmation. I can handle any challenge, any situation that life throws at me. Practice it consistently, ingrain it into your subconscious mind, and you'll find yourself empowered, and you'll find those dips much lower than they have to be. All right, I'm signing off. Go ahead, leave me your comments. I'd like to know what you think about this topic. Please like it, please share it, and of course, check out Actualized.org, where you can find more videos like this about personal development. And there you can also subscribe to my newsletter with free updates with all the videos that I publish on a weekly basis.